The cameramen are happy. Welcome all. I'll note the apologies from Councillor McTavish and Wiley, and I don't think there are any others. Thank you. All in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Confirmation of agenda. No alterations?
Madam Chair.
Yes.
I note that the item that I requested under the final opportunity on the agenda last time in respect of the information about the cleaning regimes for George Street and the Octagon hasn't yet appeared, and I'm wondering how hard it can be to give me a list of the contract and give the committee the information I've asked for.
Apologies.
And why it's not here.
Apologies, I thought it had been supplied to you, and I'll take that up, and I am sorry about that. That has been noted by the GSO, who will make sure it comes up on the next agenda. I thought that had been supplied to you.
Well, I haven't seen it, and
Sorry.
can we have it at the table for the next meeting, please?
We can.
Well, I asked for a report to come to the committee about the cleaning regime, if there is one, which I'm starting to doubt.
Could you probably be of assistance to understand what the report will be, appreciating the contracts? I just want to clarify that these are matters that are under contract already, and you want a report telling you what is in the terms of the contract.
I want to know what the regime is for cleaning the paved areas in the central city, George Street and the Octagon and Lower Stewart Street.
Do you want
because it appears to me there are lots of areas that are not cleaned and others are not done to a satisfactory level. The place is filthy.
Do you want it for the whole of the city or just the central
Just
city?
the central city area is what I asked for from October or November last year, and I'm still waiting.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'm just trying to help. I just wondered whether that information could be circulated rather than wait for a 6-week cycle to the next meeting.
I was
I'd be
concerned.
delighted.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I thought it had been given to you. Declaration of interest, I just note that. Notification of plan change 4B. Karen and Tom, welcome. Thank you for your report. Do you want to speak to it?
No, I don't think so, other than just that the report's a summary of the changes to the plan change and not meant to be, obviously, the submission itself. That was to follow.
Any questions? Mike, I have a question from you, and I've given you a heads up. The issue, is my understanding in the Strathtyre, is we've got a groundwater system for the township, which isn't protected, unlike other groundwater areas, I think, in the Otago.
Yep.
Would this be the appropriate time to submit that that protection should be given, or when is the best time? Because I know the Strathtyre Community Board have written to the Regional Council a number of times asking for that.
I understand it's out of the scope of this particular plan change, but I don't think that precludes us from suggesting that it be included in it. How much traction we'll get, I'm not sure, but there's certainly nothing stopping us from putting that forward in the submission.
And the question then is, if it doesn't go into this plan change, the ability of our council to pick it up in the 2GP becomes fraught, as my understanding. That's why I would want us to ensure that protection for our district plan.
Yep.
Do you want to comment? Okay.
So I think we'll just highlight that in the submission. Right.
Thank you. Councillor Talbot?
I'd just like to say, as somebody who has been sometimes critical of things that come to us and proposals for submissions and things, thank you very much for producing such a useful thing for us, so as we do know what is proposed and what the issues are and what we're to deal with. So I just want to give you a huge thank you and to say that that's exactly the sort of thing I really appreciate having.
Thank you. And Tom, I'm sorry, I should have welcomed you in your new position. Congratulations on your new appointment.
Thank you.
Taken over from Jean.
Yeah.
Well done, thank you. Councillor Vandervis.
Yeah, sorry, I was just absent just now. I take it we're 4.1.
Yes.
Is the minimum amount of time that is required from notification to get a submission in? What's the law have to say about that? It seems that a month's pretty short.
The law requires a minimum of 20 working days, and that's exactly what they've given us. 20 working days.
And that 20 working days, is it usual for the ORC to give us the absolute minimum in something like this?
They do frequently stick to the minimums, although sometimes if it falls over, say Christmas, they would provide a bit longer.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments?
I'll move the
Thank you,
recommendation,
Councillor.
Madam Chair.
Is it? Seconded, Councillor Noon. I'm just wondering if, consistent with other policies, whether we should actually note at the end of that, noting the submission will be pre-circulated to all councillors, and whether that, as good practice, is something that you would want to add in there?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, the recommendation is really just protecting our potential involvement in any plan change at some time in the future. So I'm happy with it.
Are you happy with that slight amendment? No, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Vanderbiss?
Yeah, I'd just comment rather than question.
It's a debate.
Yep. Yeah. I agree. I'm very glad that we're making submissions so that we can actually be party to other discussions for ongoing. The suggestion in the report that we are not going to need any more groundwater in the foreseeable future and that we're not wanting to take any more from the bores is probably reasonable until we get a collapse of the aqueduct that goes across Toma Gorge, in which case we may suddenly want to be drilling big time and we want to be sucking everything we possibly can out of the bores. So can I just flag that this groundwater allocation thing could be a really severe straitjacket for the city in the event that we have a interruption from Lee Stream. We get more than 60% of our water from Lee Stream. There has been talk in previous councils that I've been on about the cost of actually drilling to see what deep artesian water there may be, and indications are that we'd be looking at 800 metres deep and millions of dollars to be able to do it. But that would still be a lot cheaper and a lot quicker than trying to rebuild the Toma Gorge aqueduct. So in whatever submission that you do make, could you please bear in mind that I believe, at least, and I think there are others, that we are going to need some flexibility in the future, and that the strong reliance that we have on Lee Stream currently is one which makes me nervous, especially when it crosses the Tyra River the way it does. And that I think from a belt and braces point of view, if we ever do find ourselves with not so much horrendous debt, I would love to see at least a brief look at how we can diversify water supply, and that would be straitjacketed very much by the 4B provisions here.
Thank you. Any other debate? Councillor Noon?
I feel compelled to ask a question to try and balance what Councillor Vanderbiss has just said. I just wondered whether Tom or Karen could tell the committee how much capacity or volume of water have we got in storage within the city, urban city boundary, if something happened, as Councillor Vanderbiss has referred to, the aqueduct collapsing or whatever in an earthquake on the Tyra River.
And through the chair, the security of supply strategy that we're currently 50% through the implementation of does address our single point dependency that you raised about deep stream. So the pump station that essentially connects the Southern to Mount Grand treatment plants, that draws on all of our supplies, the Tyree Bores, the Morsgill, Silver Stream, as well as Deep Creek and Deep Stream. And we also have the renewal of the Ross Creek Reservoir, which adds another string to our bow in terms of being able to feed the city from different angles. So it's a perfectly valid concern. We have made some steps to try and address that single point dependency.
Can I follow up with another question? Sorry to be political, but could you, with our current capacity,
Yep.
I know the strategic thinking is happening, but our current capacity with the Mount Grand Reservoir,
Yep.
and the other reservoirs or capacities that we've got, how many days of storage have we got within the urban area, I suppose excluding the Tyree Bores?
Excluding the Tyree Bores? Yep. So today we'd probably have about 21 days, something like that.
And a supplementary question. Given that we've got 21 days storage, how many days would it take to rebuild the Toma Gorge if it went down in an earthquake? You can estimate to the nearest month or year if you like.
We estimate 6 months, but the security supply strategy, when it's complete, in probably about a month's time, once the Southern to Mount Brown pump station is complete, we'll have around six to 8 months worth of buffer for the city. So that's sort of stage one, and that creates an awful lot of flexibility.
So you're saying that the ability to pump stuff around means that we've got 6 to 8 months buffer?
Yes.
Not the 20-day storage you talk about?
That's right, yes.
All right, where does the extra 7 months buffer come from, given that it's not coming from
If we
Lee
lose
Stream?
Deep Creek and Deep Stream, we're assuming that we can still use the tidal bores.
But
Because
this
they're
here
separate.
constrains the Tari bores, doesn't it?
It doesn't constrain it, no, it doesn't reduce our current capacity. We currently have 33,000 cubes that we can take from the tidal bores and a further 7,600 from the Mosgiel bores, which is more than the daily demand for the city, or about equal to the daily.
Oh, sorry.
I think this is going slightly beyond.
Yeah, no, I very much appreciate getting that last bit of info. That actually cured it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your Worship?
No, my question has been answered preemptively.
Thank you. Okay, we've got a mover and a seconder. Any further discussion? All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Proposed road stopping 221 to 225 Bayview Road. Hello, John. Your Worship.
I'm happy to move all 4 of them.
And we'll possibly, yeah. And, okay, but we're going to do questions, but we'll just, instead of having to put them, they've all been put in second. Is that okay?
Well, Madam Chair, can I suggest that questions be allowed
For all of them.
Of all of them, and then we'll do the lot.
Thank you.
John or Jean, I'm not sure who. Look, I have a question and option in the recommendations B, where it says pay the council the actual cost involved in the stopping, regardless of whether or not the stopping reaches a conclusion, or the value of the stopped road is assessed by the council, the valuer, or whichever is greater. Now, I have a concern about how those values are derived. For example, if you've got, say, in the case of an encroachment, you've got a bit of land that the council aren't using, how do you value that land? Now, if it's, say, for example, 400 square metres on a land value of 100,000, you could say it's $400 a square metre. They get another 20 square metres, which they're already encroaching on. You suddenly say, we want to value that at $8,000. Is that how you do it? Or do you look at it as, this is a bit of land that we're prepared to sell, which is actually of no value really to anyone, except for people, so we might as well give it to them more or less for $1 sort of thing. Like I would have concerns, and I'm not trying to encourage encroachment, but I just have concerns about how you might value a bit of land, and a bit of land that to all intents and purposes may be worth significantly less than what a council valuer with a preset. I'm just wondering, how do you assess a value?
Okay, the council is required by law to use a registered valuer. We do have a standard valuer engaged by a property team who routinely makes those valuations. It can be based on the increased value of the final property boundaries rather than the 2 independent pieces as they sit currently. So they would look at it as what is the value of the total property on completion of that work being done. So it's not necessarily a multiplication of the square meterage.
Do you think that the concern I'd have is, for example, properties that have historically sold anyway, do you think they would sell any dearer or any less? I would have a concern that a property that might have sold 5 times in the last 50 years and may have a value that we can actually see what that value is.
That is exactly the question we've put to the valuer. What is the difference between the value of the property in future compared to the value of the property now? If it's the same, then the value difference is nil. If it's substantially more, then the difference would be an amount payable to the council.
Well, I would suggest in a lot of cases, well, no, I'm not allowed to suggest it. Would you think it's fair to, would you agree with us that a property that sold 5 times in the past 50 years with no encroachment knowledge, now that knowledge is there, surely those properties have historically already set the price?
Well, as I said, it is a process stipulated by legislation that we have to go through. With regard to property disposal, we do have to follow that process set by legislation. We don't have much leeway to deal with that. And that is the process that has been adopted by the council in the past.
Thank you. Councillor Corbett?
On that same question, is there any ability for the landowner to either get some arbitrated figure or get their own valuation? Because if we just keep asking the same valuer who works for us and will stop working for us if we don't like them, then we're likely to keep getting something that suits the council, which, from a council point of view, the more money we sell something for, the better, but it seems to me more useful if the people who own it could put up a valuer, we could put up a valuer and they could have a wee argy-bargy about it. Is that an available option?
Well, as I said, we do have to engage a registered valuer. It is a formal process that we go through with all properties in Dunedin with regard to revaluation for rates. The final valuation is contestable by that person, as are all valuations done by registered valuers, and that valuation would become the new property value in our rates database. So yes, it is contestable, but it is no different to all other properties, how all other properties are valued in Dunedin.
Yeah, but this is, I'm saying contestable in the buying it from us sense, rather than, I mean, generally you can complain about your rating valuation, but in this case it matters more because some money's actually going to change hands for it.
But as I said, it's consistent with how all valuations for all properties are done as to whether property valuers are provide the same amount and the valuation is up to the property valuers. All I can say is that we do have a council valuer that works for the council and we're happy with the performance of that valuer and no need to question their valuations.
Thank you. I've got a question, John. Thank you for informing us of the process you've gone for consultation. The only piece that's slightly missing here, probably in light of discussions we're going to have later on about cycleways and encroachment of land and various other things, when this has gone to transportation, have you looked at the big picture of the accessibility of extra land for cycleways and or skateboard lanes or whatever else we might in the future want to put in? Because what I can't tell from the maps is whether there's a contiguous or an ongoing width right down Bayview Road, for example, that we should actually be considering, and we're losing an opportunity by doing this one.
Yes, absolutely. The consultation that's in the report is what I would call pre-consultation. It's not formal consultation, but it's just a heads up to see if there are going to be any showstoppers from either utilities or adjacent residents. Once it's been received by the council, we then have it reviewed by quite a large number of parties within the council, including water and waste, PARS, urban design, planning, and as well as the transportation team. Within transportation, we have a look at the physical assets, any impacts on it. We have a look at our future needs and any impacts it might have, and we do also have a look at our urban design and subdivision guideline code for subdivision and development to make sure that the total width can accommodate future needs, if any. And we do also try and keep a regularised boundary in relation to adjacent properties, so that in future there's certainly nothing precluding us from further widening that road, and the impacts on those property owners would then be the same as all of the adjacent property owners.
Thank you. Councillor Hawkins?
Thank you. One of these things isn't quite like the others.
Yeah. I'll take 8 separate.
And my question is about Montgomery Avenue. Am I missing something here, and this is potentially due to my own lack of knowledge of the Public Works Act, but there doesn't appear to be any remuneration flowing in any direction with regards to that particular road stopping.
That is correct, and I'm sure we'll have further discussions on that one. With regard to Montgomery Ave, a decision was made in 2006 that the council would work with ORC and the university on these works, so there is a lot of background to that particular report already. One of the decisions that was made early on was that each party will bear its own costs in relation to these public works, which benefit all public using that area, as well as the city in regard to reduction in flooding costs. So it is different that this one's done under the Public Works Act, which uses a different process from the Local Government Act.
And costs include the loss of land.
That is correct. We lose both the land that is used, the council still retains the land other than for the driveway component. It's only the driveway component that gets transferred to the university. The rest of the land remains in Dunedin City Council's ownership under PARS rather than under roading. But we also lose the maintenance obligations that go with having a road in that location. So the two are about assumed to be about equal.
Thank you.
Although they near moved before, I was anticipating doing the first 3 and then coming to 8 separately. Yep. Okay, no further discussion or debate. I'll put the motion for number 5. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Okay, proposed road stopping 70 Mornington Road. No further questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Proposed road stopping, can you keep up, Chair? Proposed road stopping 7 Chadwick Street. Any questions or discussion? All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Montgomery Avenue. This has been moved by the Mayor and seconded by Deputy Mayor. Withdrawn. Thank you, noted. Any questions? Councillor Vandervis.
Do we have precedent for stopping a whole street here recently, and do we have precedent for doing it under the Works Act?
We certainly do have precedent for both, not necessarily simultaneously. So certainly around the university precinct, we've stopped a number of roads, and David Street, Castle Street has been stopped as a road. And we have used Public Works Act in many places where there are public works taking place and there is an exchange of land in order to accommodate those public works.
Right, but there hasn't been an entire road that's been knocked off.
Stadium.
Has that? Or
Stadium.
Yes.
There has.
There's been exchange with State Highway and there's been exchanges with the university.
Okay. This is all being driven by ORC requirements. Were we not to allow Montgomery Avenue to disappear, do they have a plan B in terms of flood protection, or has this always been part of the plan?
The plans that we have in front of us today were developed based on the discussions that were held around 2006, 2005, 2006 when they were developed, where it was decided to widen the Water of Leith through that section on the true right bank of that river. So that was the plan that was put forward at that time and that we've gone ahead with, and that's got us to this point. If we were to decide not to stop that road or access to that road, then the OSC would need to change the plans that they have before them and find another way of dealing with flooding risks.
Right. When the 2005-2006 plan that you've just alluded to was put in front of council, it was presented first, or initially as a $12 million plan, and then as a $20 million. It has since gone to $53 million plus, and they've given up essentially on the Lindsay part of it, as I understand it. I have had a number of complaints and anecdotal evidence from, amongst other people, past ORC engineers who cast doubt over the effectiveness of what is currently being done by the ORC, claiming that an inordinate amount of money is being spent with some of the major bottleneck issues not actually being dealt with. The road stopping issue here seems to me to be one that, if we consent to, are we also essentially agreeing to or condoning the new direction in which the original plan, which was a $20 million one, has now significantly changed? There was no mention in 2005-06 of streets disappearing or a lot of the subsequent changes. So if we agree to this, are we essentially in any way condoning the ORC plan?
Do you mind if I...
I'm not able to answer on behalf of the ORC, so that question would be better directed towards the ORC.
I think Tony was here in 2006, might be better positioned to answer this.
There's some things I can't remember from 2006, but some things we prefer not to. Yeah. This has had a fairly long gestation period led by the ORC in discussions with the university. We've been involved with some of those discussions, but we haven't really got involved, I think, in terms of the detail of the design of the flood protection works. What we have in front of us is an application to close the roads. We haven't really passed judgment about the works itself, although it has been through, as I recall, an Environment Court decision process. So without passing judgment on the ORC, what we've got is a request to close the road to facilitate their flood works. That's what we've got in front of us, really.
It's already started.
And it's already started.
Yeah.
And, it has, and the design has changed in those discussions with the university as well through that process. So yeah, all right. Given that then we're being asked to close a road for the ORC, and given the history, we're losing a road, we're losing 13 parks. What's in it for us? Why would we do this if we're going to lose both the road and 13 parks?
The DCC only loses 5 on-road car parking spaces. The remainder up to that 13 is 8 that are currently on university-owned land, which they're going to be shifting to somewhere else anyway. So the council only loses 5 car parking spaces on road. The council gains an enhanced resilience and flood protection for the whole city. If we remove these bottlenecks, it'll remove the likelihood of flooding, even though there will always be a risk of a greater event occurring.
Okay, now you seem fairly certain of that last statement to the extent that in your conclusion you put that the benefit to the wider community due to reduced flooding risk will be immense, unquote. What do I do as a city councillor who, having been there from the 2005-2006, seen the process change almost out of sight and seen the cost of it go through the roof by orders of magnitude, when I don't share that belief that the benefit will be immense? Is it a statement of fact, or is that just an opinion that you put there?
So, Mr. Stewart, we're dealing with a fully consented flood protection scheme that's been through the courts. I'm not sure that any of us are qualified to make comments about that, other than we're dealing with a flood protection that has been gone through a process. And I think if I take it, John's comments is reflective of the scheme as proposed by the ORC and the benefits that it will derive.
Okay, so the benefits are assuming that we will have less flooding, and the cost is we lose a road and parking. In a nutshell.
Well, we're dealing with a consented flood protection scheme that has the impact of taking out 5 parks and losing a road. Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor, I didn't give you the opportunity to speak to your motion at the start of this part.
No, it wasn't that so much. I was just going to refer, councillors, to 8.2, where it specifically talks about the narrow section of the channel with the high concrete wall along the right bank, and any expansion on the other side, the true left, would be at the expense of private property. So I assume that's the trade. It was one or the other.
That is correct.
Just taking Councillor Vandervis's point further, and you may or may not be able to answer this, but I presume that in the 2006 agreement, it wasn't subject to the whole works being done, it was done in stages.
It was an agreement in principle to work together on the scheme as it developed.
Okay, thank you. Any further, sorry.
Yeah, just one question. The private property that was referred to, I had a look trying to find it on the map for 8.7, and I noticed there's a sort of highlighted white square in the middle there. Is that the private property that would be affected if they went to the other bank?
It would be all of the properties along the left bank, true left bank of the leaf as it travels down the page.
Well, if you look at the photograph, there's actually only one that really sticks out close to the water, and that's the one that's on Leith Street that seems to be a sort of a white square, and I'm just wondering what that was. The white square in the middle of the page, the white oblong.
I'm uncertain where you are. Councillor Vandervis, do you want to lift that up and show us where you're talking about, for clarity's sake?
Sorry, that one there.
So, page
8.7.
8.7, white oblong.
Is it under the thing that says riverbed? Is that what you're pointing at? I can't see.
Just one point, these aren't plans showing what the OIC would have built if they'd gone on the true left bank. So it's difficult, I think, to judge what impact would have been if they'd gone on the true left bank as opposed to what they're proposing.
I was just wanting to establish what the private property was that would be under threat if they went on the left bank.
Not sure we
the
know.
one on the Dundas Street that has on one side of it it's got Montgomery Ave, and on the other side it's got Dundas Street, and it's a Montgomery Ave property, but it has access from Dundas Street. I thought that was what.
It's not what I'm talking about at all.
Can I explain? What I was referring to is on the true left of the leaf, there is a row of private properties fronting onto Leith Street. And if Montgomery Avenue, this is what the report says, if Montgomery Avenue weren't used and the expansion of the creek bed was on the true left, that row of properties, all private or university owned, I don't know, they're not publicly owned anyway, would be what would have to go. That's the choice.
That is correct. All of those properties are private properties. All of them would be affected by any works on that side, and all of them would have to be transferred in some way. Whereas on the true right-hand side of the river, all of the land is the council's part of Montgomery Ave and can be dealt with in one process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Motion's been put. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hawkins.
Just quickly, I'm just asking for assurance, I guess, that regardless of its proximity to the university campus, we will retain control over the use of what is about to become parks and reserves land. What was the road that will then be, is it Esplanade Reserve or whatever it's called officially, will we still be in charge of that land?
Yes, the Esplanade Reserve will be owned by the DCC, and the DCC will have the management responsibility for it, and one of our prime requirements is that we maintain a public right-of-way across it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Calvert.
Does that mean if it's part of sort of university campus sort of area that all of a sudden you can't ride bikes, not like the rest of campus?
We're still in discussions with the university. The university does in general allow people to ride, well, they don't stop people from riding bicycles on the footpaths in their within their campus, but it would still be up to the DCC and the university to work on that agreement under the MOU if there's any restrictions along those lines.
So they do actually stop people. They've got a policy against people riding bikes on their campus, and that would be then part of their campus, I would have thought.
John, any discussion or agreement under that MOU to stop cyclists, for example, would that have to come to the council, or would that be dealt with as an agreement operational?
The proposal is to have it as a pedestrian path only at this stage. So if we were to change that, that's something the council could consider.
So it needs a separate motion? That this is done subject to wheeled bicycles being provided for on that Esplanade strip? Sorry, is it in the MOU? I may have missed that it's pedestrian?
I don't know exactly where it is in the MOU, so the MOU still does need to be decided, but you may add a motion if you require cycling to be provided for. What I've stated in the report is that the council itself, when I've checked with transportation planning, hasn't envisaged this being a cycle path, or there being a need for a cycle path when there's Castle Street that'll get you to exactly the same spot already. So Castle Street already provides cycle access to the same destinations.
Well, I just wanted to note that the tertiary steering group has currently got a pedestrianisation, some pedestrianisation work being done with the university and some other work done on cycling. So I think it would be unfortunate and premature to impose anything here when work is already going on. And my understanding is that whilst the university has a policy, it doesn't actually enforce it. So, but it's in flux, and they're working on it, and so it would seem to me to be premature to impose something here that's being worked on over the whole campus.
It wouldn't make any difference then if they weren't enforcing it anyway, whether it was actually able to be ridden bikes on, since they're not enforcing it anyway. I would like to.
Well, the motion's been already put. I'm just going to ask this mover and seconder whether they're happy for a note to be added at the end that the council would prefer that cycling access be provided along this alternative routes, and that would give that room for manoeuvre and that. And I think the intent here is that it would be lost otherwise.
It wouldn't need to be right now.
Through the chair, would that even be an issue? If we're in control of the land, it's not like the university can dictate what happens on it.
No, the university are going to be taking over some of the one end of this, so they could. At the moment, you can cycle through there, although there's only vehicle counts. Does vehicle counts include cycling?
We would need to be clear about that in the component of the driveway, which would become the university's ownership, yes.
Yeah. Councillor Vandervis?
The discussion over whether it has to be on the left or the right side of the leaf going down, are you aware that there was also a possibility of actually deepening the channel to get the extra volume of water through so that you wouldn't have to extend either the left or the right? And are you aware that they were going to take out the Dundas Street Bridge and make a much wider version of that at one stage as well, but that they also looked at deepening the channel rather than going left or right? Were you aware that that was a possibility?
As Tony said, this is a consented flood protection project that has gone through that process already to look at all the different options, and recommendations have been passed. And just to be clear, this is a component of a program of works. The Dundas Street Bridge is still on that program to be done as well. So that will be the next one, but not right now.
So you were aware of the possibility, though, of actually leaving the Dundas Street Bridge, leaving both sides as they are and simply deepening the channel?
I'm aware that there have been a number of different options considered for the Dundas Street Bridge. Quite a long time ago, maybe back in 2006, we checked with NZTA about the possibility of NZTA funding for flood protection works, and the answer was no, because it's driven by different means. I do note on page 8.7 on the map, it does show under the Dundas Street Bridge, in terms of that diagram, right bank graded back to provide for box culvert to the western side of the Dundas Street Bridge. I'm aware that there was discussions about excavating under the bridge and the approach is widening it at that point. Whether they've defined it or not, I have no idea, but there's certainly been a variety of discussions over time that have led to this proposal. So,
thank you.
Thank you. Just getting consent of the mover.
What I suggest is that that the motion be that we prefer that we would suggest that cycle access be considered along with the work already going on, so that the whole thing is consistent. Because we're heading for cycle access through the campuses anyway, and council has to do some work to fix some of our problems with that we're responsible for. The university would have to change some things. So in a sense, this does no harm, but it seems to me that it would be better to put it in the context of all the other work.
Could we then add, in conjunction with, because this is the first I've heard of any work that the university is doing, us or anybody else, if we have, that we'd like it to be considered in conjunction with works, so at least we're acknowledging that work's being done.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you're happy with that amendment? Yeah. Second is happy with that amendment? Chris? Yep. Okay, have you got that? Thank you. Are we all understand what that, it's just a note, but it's just to make sure that you come back to us if there's a change in that. Any further discussion? All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against?
No, recorded, please.
Carried. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Submission on priority waste streams for product stewardship intervention. Hello, Laura and Kathy. Hi. Another short time frame turnaround. Would you like to speak to this either? Yeah, thank you.
So priority product stewardship is part 2 of the Waste Minimisation Act. Since the Act came into force in 2008, the government's preference has been for voluntary product stewardship. Product stewardship means that the producers of the item or people involved in a life cycle of a product take some responsibility for the product at its end of life or for its environmental impacts. So the delightful to see this discussion document out. It's some of these products that are on the list that are being considered have been a concern for councils and people involved in waste minimisation for a while. So some of the points that I've put in this report are for discussion only, and within the scope of the products that have been put up, there's a greater conversation to be had. There's also other products that were assessed that aren't on that list that could also be discussed if that was of interest.
Councillor Vandervis.
Just wondering, on 9.7, why would bicycle tyres be accepted? All tyres are on the list. Why would you accept bicycle tyres?
I'm not sure that was in the discussion document. So they've said all tyres excluding bicycle tyres. So whether it's a different rubber or whether they don't have any processing facility for it, I'm not sure why that was excluded. Also, it's worth noting too that since I wrote this report, I've been in touch with Ministry for Environment, and their staff are doing a tour around the consultation. So I've booked in a workshop in Dunedin on the 20th of June. So if there are members of ISCOM that would like to attend to that workshop and ask very specific technical questions like that, the Ministry staff would be the best people to do it.
Is it not possible for us to get an answer a bit sooner than that on why the exception?
I could email through, yeah.
That'd be great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson.
I was just wondering what the definition was of lightweight plastic bags, given, and it seems to me that what that definition is would determine whether it was even remotely feasible to put a levy on.
Lightweight plastic bags tend to be shopping bag type plastic bags, so they're easily windblown. They catch up, that's why they become a litter issue and they end up in our oceans. The heavier plastics aren't such a problem, it's from the littering prospect, yeah. So some supermarkets and retailers are already putting a voluntary levy on their plastic bags and others are choosing not to.
Right, okay, thank you.
Councillor Colbert.
Does electrical goods and things include ink and printers? I noticed that this document, I don't know whether we printed it or they printed it, but a whole colourful thing that doesn't need to be in colour at all. But the printer ink and things that goes in there, is that included in electronic things? Because I would have thought that was a question about the coloured ink that we're all wasting every day.
They don't expressly mention that, but it would be worth making a mention of because the recycling infrastructure for ink cartridges exists. And where we're at the moment, we're finding that people are choosing to buy printers instead of buying cartridges because it's actually cheaper to buy a printer for $50 than to get your cartridges replaced for $80. So we're seeing a tremendous amount of printers coming through the waste stream. So it's worth putting it in there. It doesn't mention it in the discussion documents.
But can we ask them too whether they were intending to mean
to include
printers and the ink that they contain?
Yeah.
Councillor Noon.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Kath, my question's around the priority waste streams and whether there's anything that we need to be concerned about that's not included in that list but may pertain to simply whether we operate this part of the country. There may be nasties that we think should be included in that list. Is there anything that you would suggest?
Yeah, I think the products that have bubbled to the top are the ones that we are, as a country, most ready to deal with. The products of particular concern in Otago would be around agricultural and the rural collections. We have a very low participation in ag recovery and ag pack collections, so that is chemical waste, chemical containers, silage wrap, crop netting, twine, all of these sorts of things. A priority product stewardship status on those products would make it more affordable for farmers to participate because the cost would be across broad. At the moment, there's just a few producers of products that are voluntary participating, and so the ones that are free riding or not participating in voluntary product stewardship Their products are cheaper because there's no advanced disposal cost on there, so it's more attractive to buy a cheaper product that you would then have to pay to be recycled at the end. So if it was mandatory across the board, it would be much, much more viable to provide collection services in the rural sector. Yeah.
You know how the Green Island landfill has got the access for radiator waste, got the right term, antifreeze, sorry. So there's no other products out there that sort of fit into that same category that aren't included in here, but they're real nasties that we want to keep out of the landfill?
Yeah, they are, and I was thinking about that also. So we have the only antifreeze recycling facility in the country, and they are finding it difficult again to get participants on board. They're looking at this discussion document at tyres, so they have a group of producers, MTA association, all of the people on board, and they also have oil recovery systems as well. So it would be worth discussing with them. I have spoken to the business owners of Better Antifreeze and suggested to them they make an application to product stewardship, so they will need to be accredited under product stewardship to be able to apply, but there is an opportunity there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Lord.
Yeah, Kath, I'm perhaps asking this question a wee bit tongue-in-cheek in view of some of the comments I hear around this table, but I see on 931, 4% of tyres can be reused as silage covers, and I just think that's quite an amazing statistic. When dairy farmers equal less than 0.25% of the population, I think they're punching well above their weight, recycling up to 4% of the tyres that come into the country, so I just think that should be noted.
Yeah.
Is that a question? Don't you agree that's a good effort?
Reuse is great. We can always do better though.
Are there any other questions of a higher calibre? Thank you.
I'm nervous now. Thanks, Madam Chair. Is this discussion document essentially an admission that voluntary schemes, as promoted post the introduction of the Waste Minimisation Act 2008, have failed to make any meaningful impact on minimising waste?
It's good that voluntary product stewardship is out there, and there are programs that we definitely support. So one specifically around packaging would be the Love New Zealand project. So that has enabled us to put in public places recycling infrastructure, and it's done really well. It doesn't go far enough. It's still not being able to capture the packaging, so there is just a tremendous amount of it out there. And there are costs associated with that. So although it is not on that list, my feeling is that packaging should be, so that some regulation can be put towards that, and more can be collected.
Do you have any understanding of the rating method used to calculate the priorities, or are they essentially arbitrary? And also part of that, can the risks of harm in fact be cumulative rather than solely based on the product that is accumulating?
Yeah, so it is both. The risk of harm is connected to the toxicity of waste. So in the New Zealand Waste Strategy, the number one priority is to reduce the harmful effects of waste. And some of these waste products that have been cited do have a cumulative effect, especially agrochemicals. They are bioaccumulative, so they store up in the soil and become more potent over time. There's also tyres, although they aren't extremely hazardous in themselves, they have a hazardous component to them, they cause other concerns to human health. So you have tyre dumps that accumulate, you get mosquitoes and other vermin that it attracts, you get, if they catch on fire, toxic smoke that has health effects. So I mean, that is definitely an issue about the quantity of tyres out there and how we might manage that. It's from Otago's situation, really, we just haven't got the economies of scale to transport our tyres by ourselves, and there's not the facility here to process that amount. But if there was mandatory product stewardship, and there was some infrastructure built, then we would definitely benefit from that.
Given that voluntary measures are clearly insufficient, and industry readiness is unlikely to be substantial, probably for many of the same reasons, instead of, and the problems that we have around the rating of risks in some instances, are we not better off asking which of these products would most easily be helped by a product stewardship approach, rather than which are the most harmful if we do nothing? Would this be more useful in terms of getting something off the ground?
So the other filter is the resource efficiency opportunities. So with e-waste you have both, you have the hazardous nature, but you also have what you can get out of it for reuse, for recycling, that sort of thing, so the benefit you can get out of it. And that we have infrastructure that can deal with it. E-waste in particular, I think, has to happen urgently because so much investment has gone into the infrastructure in New Zealand. And now that all the government subsidies have ended, we're seeing some of these major e-waste recyclers in jeopardy of losing their businesses entirely and losing that infrastructure. So that's really important. You wouldn't put paper in there necessarily because it doesn't have a huge risk of harm, so you could deal with paper by making sure it comes from sustainable forestry and reduction, that sort of thing. So using those two as a bit of a guide of what we can do. Then looking at those voluntary measures that are out there, seeing if they're working, to what degree they're working. The industry readiness, the packaging one is again an interesting case because the packaging councils oppose mandatory product stewardship, and packaging was rated as having no or not applicable risk of harm. So I think that it needs to be acknowledged that packaging does have harm in the first instance, so that we can have a meaningful conversation around product stewardship. And the current producers is also important. You have to be able to tie it back to someone. So currently it tends to be councils and customers that through user payers that are paying the costs to recover materials. You need to be able to tie it back to the producers and the distributors and retailers so that those costs are shared, and that makes it more affordable. And in some cases you're dealing with legacy waste, so tyres that have already accumulated, stockpiles that have already gathered, costs are going to have to be recovered to remedy those as well as some agrochemicals. There's still DDT out there. Nobody produces that anymore, we can't make anybody accountable for that. So through this product stewardship is going to have to account for legacy waste recovery as well.
One of those voluntary schemes was the TV take-back scheme. Would you rate that as a success, as a voluntary scheme?
Not terrifically, no. It was rolled out initially in Hawke's Bay, and it was a free collection. The warehouse did it first of all, a few years back. They had 2 weeks where they ran one. They was absolutely overwhelmed. They collected over 28,000 TVs in that time. The ministry then brought out the next phase, which was to involve councils across the country. It was free in Hawke's Bay, and they collected over 20,000 TVs there. They then imposed a charge in phase 2, which was Otago and the rest of the South Island other than the West Coast. And numbers reduced. Initially they were trying to get 500,000 TVs, legacy waste. Again, we have no option. With this we can't recover a cost on something that's already become waste. And just over 220,000 TVs I think were recovered in the end. From the recyclers' perspective, it was the regions that turned out in mass because we don't have everyday options available to us. So people in Dunedin came out and recycled, but in the big cities, Wellington and Auckland, not so much because they have everyday solutions. So it was the logistics where the money was lost.
By diverting priority products from the landfill and transferring more of the costs of those that make it to landfill to the production and retail chain, I assume there'll be impacts in terms of both decreased revenue and operating costs for us. Are these interventions expected financially, putting aside the obvious waste minimisation and environmental impacts, are they financially expected to be a net saving to council, or at least would that be a benchmark against which their success would be measured?
It depends on how they model the product stewardship around it. So in the next step, they're going to be talking with the affected parties, which should include us, and I've got to clarify that with Ministry for Environment as well. So with TV take-back being the issue was TVs have now gone up to $40 a TV to recycle. And we have continued to do that. We collected 3 TVs in May at $40. We still have a container there we're filling, and we have to decide at which point the containers fill, whether or not to do it, because transporting those TVs will now be at our cost. So effectively we're subsidising it, but then it going to landfill is, you know, there's no opportunity in that. It's lost. And there's costs as well. I mean, it's still, and then we have the issue with illegal dumping. So illegal dumping has gone up since TV take-back is finished, and we're getting TVs dumped outside of charity stores and outside of car enterprises. So we're collecting those at a cost as well. So as much as possible, we want mandatory product stewardship, those costs to be received by the producers, and throughout that life cycle it gets shared.
Ideally in advance?
Could you email us to Kathleen?
Yeah, so in some cases advanced disposal cost is charged. On tyres you're already paying one, and in some cases it may be you know, retrieved in other ways.
I have one last question, and it's about batteries. The exclusion of batteries from e-waste confuses me, given that I'm assuming a lot of those products do contain batteries in the first instance. And I'm just interested in what we do with them currently, and I'm hoping that we're not encasing them in concrete and throwing them in the landfill, as I understand happens in other parts of the country.
There are a variety of batteries. So batteries in e-waste, cell phone batteries, laptop batteries are recyclable, so they get recycled with the e-waste. There are the rechargeable batteries, your Nicans and your lithiums, and they are recyclable, and they can be taken to interwaste. There is a cost, user pays cost for that. Alkaline batteries are not recyclable, and they are encased in concrete. The only other option for alkaline batteries would be to export them to Paris for incineration.
But why is your recommendation not that batteries not to be included as a priority product?
It's only a discussion point, and we can include it in the introduction in the discussion document to e-waste for priority stewardship. They include batteries. They don't define what is in that definition, so that's something that could be asked of MEP at the workshop.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beetson-Pope.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you would tell me if you think there'd be any value in including in the e-waste section a suggestion to government they might consider following the European example and legislating for standardisation of such things as cell phone charges and computer charges in terms of reducing volume of waste. I don't know how many charges you've got, I know how many I've got. And I have an associated concern that if that is decided in Europe, it will force all the proliferation of other charges off to our bit of the third world to get rid of product that's already been manufactured. So can I have some consideration given to that idea, please? It seems to me that government needs to match what's happening elsewhere.
So a good product stewardship stream goes all the way back to design. So it's going all the way back to those producers where they can reuse materials, particularly from e-waste. But also standardisation is a regulatory tool they could use. So prioritising a product for product stewardship is just saying we feel that there needs to be some regulation around there, and then the regulation tools are developed, and that could be one that could be discussed. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, Councillor Thompson.
Paint strikes me as one that is absolutely amenable to this kind of a regime. You have pretty clear producers, and is a problem. And I wonder whether whether you would see it as sensible to give consideration to recommending that be included.
Yeah, we can do that also. Paint again is under voluntary product stewardship, and there is a ban on landfill, so we don't accept liquid paint at landfill.
Well, you don't know what
No,
you get.
that's right. Yeah, it's the same with a lot of products.
And there, as I understand it, there is a charge for the paint companies who, like I think, I hope I'm not wrong on this, but for example, Resine frequently advertised, they'll take it back free under some circumstances, but otherwise you're paying them to take it back. So that acts as an immediately disincentive to...
Yeah. And that's how voluntary product stewardships are tending to work at the moment. Their user pays, and that is acting as a disincentive. We find that the customer's just not willing to pay. They'll take their own paints back free of charge, but other brands, there's a charge on it. Yeah.
And I should say it's excellent that they will take their own paint back free of charge.
It is.
They donate it to the Keep Dunedin Beautiful to use on graffiti. Thankfully, we've got a problem to deal with it. The local government, New Zealand, I presume, is putting a submission in, or are we expecting to be getting that in order to inform us on that debate?
We're expecting Wastemans and a sector group, a steering group of Wastemans, which is the Waste Institute of New Zealand, is putting a submission in. I expect local government will do as well, but I'm expecting to hear back from Wastemans by the end, well, mid next month, they will have something in.
This is the 2nd of July, so I presume mid this month.
Oh, mid this month.
So
no, it's already June.
And the reason I'm asking this, anticipating that we would be circulating those submissions to all councillors as well.
Yes.
Okay. One other question I had, and it actually comes down to the Baking Dunedin and Liverpool, and your concerns about tyres, I think it was. What I would hate this policy, or this submission, sorry, this work to happen, is that it makes places like Dunedin and Invercargill really expensive places to live, but Auckland and Wellington cheaper, by the nature of the everything being the highest population being there. And is there room for looking at it being a New Zealand-wide cost that's equal everywhere, albeit that the transportation costs may not be equal?
Yeah, so that's definitely what I think we should advocate, because we do have we have the tyranny of distance, you know, getting product from point A to point B for recycling, and there's usually additional costs to that. So whether or not we can actually build to, you know, what your
time's up apparently. Sorry. Thank you, Dr. Hazelton. Sorry, apologies.
Where there's an opportunity to build our own capability, we should do that, and where it should be that where we have to move things, we do it at no extra cost than everyone else.
And partly the reason for that is that the jewels of New Zealand are often far distance away, but we're most likely to be dumped at if we don't have that uniform New Zealand charge. Thank you. Now, I'm happy to put the motion, but I'd like to add in there the Chair Infrastructure Services Committee after email consultation with councillors, approved the final submission due 2nd of July 2014. With that amendment. Thank you. Sorry,
just a question of process.
Yeah.
So that means that we can submit to you directly suggestions for...
Yeah, well, and to staff, and staff, please. So what I'm anticipating is we're going to have a WINS, so waste minimisation workshop on 21st. There'll be a submission coming from the Waste Mins group, and there'll be a submission from Local Government New Zealand to inform us all and how we want to do that timing-wise. That's putting a lot of work right before the submission's due to Kath to do. So that's the process I'd see happening, that we'd put those ideas out there and see if we can gauge consent through emails. Is that okay?
Oh, that's fine. I think. Would you prefer them sooner or later?
I think the more time we're given, the better, because I do believe that towards the end of the submission period, we'll probably get quite a lot from Local Government New Zealand and others. But anything that informs that debate, I think, is a wonderful thing. I personally would think that this is an issue that a lot of people, residents, would like to have been informed on, and I do wonder whether we should be putting the information as it becomes available on our website, available to other people to inform them.
So we've put the workshop consultation up on the website, and I've just populated an invite list to specific groups of interest that we'll be sending out in the next day or two.
Thank you. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a lot of work, but very timely. Thank you. Update on the South Dunedin Cycle Network. Welcome Sarah and Lisa. Sorry about your wait. It's been an interesting debate. And Jean. You don't want to beat the road between two thorns, or? Just about covering the price. Covering the back. Do you want to speak to your report, or you think you've said it all?
Said it all. I guess the main reason we're bringing this for you today is to just give you an update where we are with packages 1 through 3, and to approve the amended South Dunedin Cycle Network map for packages 1 through 3, where 4 will be coming. We're still in consultation on that.
And still doing some work?
Yeah, we definitely work on that still. Like it's just a question.
Okay, questions? Councillor Calvert?
2 questions. First, car parks?
Yes. I went through, after our briefing this morning, I went through the different packages and looked at the car parks and numbers kind of per route and I guess the specifics. Do you want me to just kind of run through a bit just to give you a general idea? Or? Package 2, which was Route 1, that's the one that runs, it's kind of a quiet street running from Hillside to Victoria Road or Tahuna? Tahuna Road.
Package 1?
Yeah, this is Package 2, Route 1. Some of them I just go by one name, but this has about 4 different streets in it. So this one, I looked through the whole route, and some of these I think I'm probably going to err on the side of probably more lost than not, because some of them are a little difficult to say. But I mean, I've got one on the package on route. I've got 13 spaces. One of those is a corner build out, which is kind of, I said, questionable. It looks like there's 1 space there. 3 spaces were lost in, there's an SBF transition between Waverley Street and Broughton, and 7 spaces in the transition SBF between Broughton and Fingal on McAndrew Road. So the places where there are losses tends to be where those jogs are in those north-south routes. The one that had the 7 spaces is in front of the Catholic Social Services, which also has a large off-street car park. And then Marlowe Street, I guess about 2 spaces for the speed hump, just the crossing there that goes through the easement of the school down through Old Street. So, you know, from Hillside to Tahuna, 13 spaces.
To Tahuna?
Yeah, on Route 1.
So, can we just check with, this is the route here that goes from near Andy Bay, Hillside Road.
Hillside Road, and then kind of goes straight down. And it's mainly a quiet street. And I said the streets themselves, I think, have minimal. It's more the transitions of those jogs where there's loss. Yeah.
And the other routes?
Okay. Route 2, I've said 8 to 9 spaces. That's the one from Kutri to Richardson, that Bologna, New Street, Rugby. So it goes all the way from Forbury Road to Royal Crescent. I looked at about 2 spaces at the intersection of Kutri, Hargest, and Richardson, which that's been worked through with the owners in that area. We did go out and talk with them about the best way to do that transition for that crossing. About 2 to 3 at Richardson between Hargest and Moreau Street. This is a pinch point where there's 2 bus stops, and so it's mainly because of the bus stops and the spacing there. 2 at Bologna at Churchill, which is an intersection build-out, and 2 spaces at Bologna and Prince Albert and New Street, again, intersection build-out. So I said there was about 8 to 9 on that route. Okay. Route 3 is the one that has the most parking loss because it is primarily an SBF. On the south side of Neville Street, between Burn Street and the rail bridge, there are 46 spaces there. And that's, we had, so many meters of restricted, but then I went in and looked at with the driveway, so it looks to be about 46 spaces on that southern side of Neville Street till you hit about the rail bridge, and then it goes into a shared path at that point along Wilkie. And so nothing on Wilkie is lost. There's one space on King Edward where we have the crossing point near the oval, so only on one side, and then Vogel Street with curb build-outs and speed humps about 7, so a total of 54 on that route.
So the Neville Street,
Huh?
sorry, the Neville Street.
Neville
ones,
Street.
Are they being used, who are they by? Because that's the biggest loss, isn't it?
Yes, that would be, I guess, whatever businesses might be backing on that from Hillside Road. It's across from Carisbrook, I guess, at the middle of demolition when we were doing all that. So, but they are on the other side of the street. Route 4 is the other north-south route that goes down Law Street, goes from South Road to Victoria Road. That has a total loss of 11 spaces. I said about 6 on Law Street. We're putting in a few trees in the parking strip. Some of those might be a parking lot, some of those might be a small section between driveways. Again, build-outs at intersections and a couple of slow points.
Sorry, it's just unclear. Route 4,
Yep.
is that part of package 3 now?
Okay, sorry. Yep, we're into package 3 now, and that's Route 4. So that's the one that goes Law Street down through Bathgate Park, Kirkcaldy to Morrow Street.
The car park loss,
Sorry?
is that over and above what was going to be lost before, or?
As far as, this is just loss from what's initially out there. This is not necessarily a difference due to a variation.
Okay, Councillor Carr, would you?
Okay.
Route 5?
Yeah, okay, so Route 4 was a total of 11. Route 5 is Musselburgh Rise, a total loss of 24 spaces. In this case, we did go with the SBF over the quiet street through the shops, and through consultation, the businesses were for this because there actually was more loss with the quiet street due to build-outs. The Route 5, one of them's a crossing point. There are some parking restrictions due to the narrowing at Tainui due to the right-hand turn pocket. So a couple places at intersections, if there's been a right turn pocket, that becomes a bit of a pinch point. So that had about 13 to 14 spaces in that area. 5 at Bayfield Road, about an additional 32 meters of restriction to what was already there. A couple spaces at Shore Street due to intersection tightening and removing the left turn slip lane, which is no longer necessary. And 2 for the crossing point at Musselburgh Rise west of Somerville Street, for the crossing point there. So really a total of 24 spaces there. This is considering not having any facility on the downhill from Silverton. So initially there was some losses with this SBF around the Plunkett. And Route 6, which is Quiet Street, just has 8 spaces, and these are all speed humps, slow points, but again, this was no variation on this one.
I've got another question. Thank you.
Yep.
And thank you for doing that so quickly because
And some of them are a little tricky,
yes,
yeah.
It would be great to have that on some maps and things, because people could look at them the way they could with Vogel Street. Because there's nothing like sort of a visual sort of idea, because it might frighten people, and then they look at them and think, oh, well, that wasn't going to...
Yeah, some of them say so many meters restricted, and I think, ooh, that was a lot of spaces. But when I actually went in to look at the map, you could see there was a lot of restriction already, so some of it was just, like I said, 32 meters extra. So,
And my other question is, it says at the end of, on 10.5, I think, maybe it isn't on 10.5, somewhere it says that it's going to, we've spent slightly cost more than we thought it was going to, and we will need more money if we want to finish it, or where was that? I saw that.
Sure.
Something about 1.1 million, but it... Attachment
So the landscaping on Portsmouth Drive, possibly?
Sure, because the budget's 4.5. And we talked earlier today that I think the first package was 1.6.
It's not page 10.8, is it? Package at the bottom, detailed.
Here we go.
And then on 10.10, sorry. 10,
Under the
bottom of
details,
10.10.
okay.
No, I just wanted to be reassured that, and perhaps I'm just reading it wrongly, I can't even find it anymore.
Bottom of 10.10?
Bottom of 10.10. That the overall project budget may not be sufficient to complete all the remaining routes, and additional funding may be needed. Because earlier it says that there isn't going to be any more funding, and I thought this morning we heard that there wasn't going to be any more funding, and to have this move forward and then find out later, just from a wee twitch of the tail, that we can't do the rest of it to finish it because the total budget's now too small.
We do have a slight concern at this stage about whether the 4.5 million will be sufficient to complete the program as was set out at the start. But that may be unfounded because we are waiting for the tender for package, or tenders for package 2 to come in, so that whether some of that concern is real or not at this stage. So, for example, if the tender comes under our estimate, then we'll be in a favourable position, or if it's there or thereabouts, we'll be in a reasonable position. But it's a bit premature to indicate where we're at. We just essentially do have an underlying concern about where that may fall. And I suppose some of that concern is around the broader picture about where the supply market is in terms of the capacity for them to do this work on our timeline as well.
I thought this morning you were suggesting that it was going to be not any more than, these 3 bits were going to be not any more than they'd been predicted. Is it the stage 4 bit that you are worried about, or?
Well, certainly stage 4 is more sensitive in terms of the effects on people, so that could cause some time delays. But broadly speaking, if we can use package 1 as evidence in terms of how our estimates were reliable, we're reasonably confident that package 2, 3, etc. will be reasonably robust, but there's a certain amount of uncertainty in that until the tenders come in. And it's just a feeling of what the supplier market is like at the moment.
So if we approve this now, are we sort of acknowledging that we're approving something that may be an increased cost that we don't know about, or that we can't quantify, or would we be in a position to say, okay, it's coming a bit higher than we wanted, so there's something we won't do and keep it within the package amount? I mean, I'm sort of feeling like agreeing to this, accepting this report with that just little sting in the tail might make us think that we have to then go over budget rather than another alternative, which would be to just say that's the budget. So there are some other ones in the last thing that we're not going to be able to do.
If, taking a scenario, the tenders came back and they were much greater than our estimate, that would give rise to concern about the overall program, and would be reassessing our options at that stage before tender award.
Okay. Councillor Benson-Pope.
Thank you. There's been some confusion in the community as a result of something that was published, dare I say it, in the Star, and also confusion over the before and after maps that are in our documents. So can I just ask you to confirm publicly that the residents of the south side of Silverton Street can sleep happy knowing that the downhill speed lane has been abandoned?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson-Craig. Next on my list is Councillor Thompson.
The residents of Silverton Street may sleep well in their beds, although cyclists may not, but...
Just one side of Silverton.
This is not my original question, but it follows on just for something that, so let me deal with it. When we put speed humps in, is there any reason why we have to remove a car park? I park over one regularly in Christchurch every time I have to go to a particular venue because I can guarantee it'll be the only vacant car space in the street.
I guess it's not a crossing point or something. I don't know if you necessarily need to. I mean, it's really more of a detail thing. I think I was just looking at just from a bit of a broad stroke, just say worst case scenario.
I only asked it because you said
Some of
one
the,
place
I
there was
think,
7 parks gone because of pumps, and I just thought, well,
some of the
why?
slow points, which might have a bit of like landscape, like a slow point would be like a single lane where you might have landscape and the cyclist could go around or something. In that case, yes, but speed humps themselves, possibly not. Depends. We could put them across driveways, and it probably would be an issue.
In the workshop this morning, I raised the issue of behavioural psychology and what people will actually do as opposed to what we might wish them to do. And the area that concerns me at the moment is the change to the oval. But my question is, what is it that you're bringing that to this committee for? Because effectively you've already made that decision and you've gone out to tender on that decision to send people the other way and then backtrack to link back up with Bogle Street. So do we have at this point in time any influence?
Well, my concern was that this had come to council previously and we'd signed off on something that's now not going ahead, and that we needed to bring it to council in order to get the approval.
Well, that's exactly my point, that what we'd signed off is in fact has gone out for tender. Not what we'd signed off has gone out for tender, something else has gone out for tender, an aspect of which would concern me significantly, and I see one of the justifications here was for the need for lighting and the cost of many kilometres of new 3 metre wide shared path, and I was struggling to see where the many kilometres came from.
I think there was other issues with the landscape along there too. So I know we talked with PARS on this.
Well, yeah, but let's go back to my point though. I mean, looking at it, I struggle to see where many kilometres come from. So I may be misunderstanding it. So I'm trying to get my head around what I understand. Sorry, I'm not wanting to have a debate. I understand a decision's been made.
Yeah.
And we're being asked to approve something that now has already gone out for tender, and if we might have had some concerns about that, is there any provision for that to have any meaningful expression here today, or is it effectively we're now in a done deal?
I think that may be the issue with the Technics package, but that's why it's come here now in order that we can forward think those for the other packages that haven't gone out yet. I appreciate and understand your frustration with that process. Well, if there's huge impediments, I'd like to know about them. I think they are still able to be discussed. It's our duty to.
Well, I mean, I can expand on it in discussion, but I guess the question is, if you're sending people a certain way, but you're then asking them to backtrack, are you in fact behaviourally just likely to send them down Princess Street, which is not what we want to achieve?
Yeah.
Can I just comment on, is this a done deal first, before we come back to more of the behaviour side of it, and I would defer to these ladies on. Certainly, the reason why we're here is to get your confirmation of the changes to the cycle network, so there's ample opportunity for you not to endorse those, and to a certain extent, we're, in terms of package 2, we're in a tender stage, and there's ample opportunity to make variations through the course of the contract that's awarded, or through our negotiation phase with a preferred contractor as well.
So in that context, would it be feasible, and I'm not committing myself to this point, but I'm asking the question, would it be feasible to ask for the tenders to also price the alternative, original route round the oval, which was a much more direct route, and given what we know about what people tend to do, may have been a much more sensible route, or was originally the route. Is that feasible, or is it too late to go out and say, give us a variation price in your tender for eliminating that one and replacing it with that one?
Those things can be done.
Okay.
Councillor Bissett.
I think this is, it's a process that I have some difficulty with, and I think it is very difficult. We've been asked to approve the cycle network route, and that's fine, but under the discussion, you make the comment, in some cases a number of options may be developed for consultation. So it appears that there's still some more consultation to be undertaken on this option. And you go on to say something along the line, your scope and safety audit may be required. Now, so does that mean if we approve this concept today, then there may be at some time in the near future further consultation on the options that we're approving, which may or may not lead to further options? Do you understand what I'm...
So you're saying...
Sorry, are you talking about the section on page 10.3, which describes the stages that each package must go through? Is that the bit you're referring to?
I'm referring to the comments on, 10.3.
Yeah, so that section is just meant to give an overview of the process that each package goes through.
Yeah.
So package 1 has been through all those stages and is 2 weeks away from construction being finished, whereas package 4, we're only just really starting the concept design. So yes, there is still quite a lot of consultation to be done for package 4.
So the option that we sign off today, if we do, there'll be no more consultation on that. That'll be an absolute done deal.
On which package?
Well,
2. It's the cycle network is shown on attachment 2.
Attachment 2 contains all the recommended proposed changes on packages 1 to 3, without any more consultation anticipated.
Yeah, well, as I say, I do have a difficulty with that process, but I'll speak to that later on.
Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you. With regards to your analysis of potential car parking loss, can you comment on how useful that information is at all, without any understanding of the capacity to which those parks are currently used and or easily accessible adjacent car parking options for those displaced motor vehicles?
Well, I guess in many of the cases, we really, the whole idea was to minimize the impact of parking and to look at if there were options for them on side roads and stuff. Especially, the biggest trouble I guess we had were those transitions, the transition routes in between where sometimes we went up and used a shared path just to transition to the X road. So we did try to make, I guess, the most of minimizing the impact. But some of those car parks on the backside of St. Clair School, well, do you need as many if the kids are cycling to school? There's all those kinds of things too. So that's a big parent drop-off area. So
can you define what minimal impact is? If people had to park half a block away, for example, would that be a minimal impact or what? Or zero impact or?
I say in most of these cases, other than maybe the Neville Street, most of the impacts were just a few spaces, like around a speed hump or just a build-out type thing. And I guess that's considering that everybody's parking the full length of the street all the time anyway, and there isn't spare capacity.
But we don't know.
I wouldn't, there was only, I think, one property where we had a little concern on, corner of Morrow and Richardson, and we've worked with them because that's where we have a restriction because of the bus stop, and there was some parking restriction around the way, but we were able to shorten, or I guess, the width of one of the footpaths, so we didn't have the impact on the parking. So we have tried to work in those areas to make the most of that carriageway width.
The routes that have been changed, and there are a couple that are mentioned in the report, due to these very problems, were those decisions made based on the kind of detailed information that I suggested, or were they based solely on objections raised? I'm trying to get an idea of how much of it was a real problem and how much was a perceived problem that was then addressed by changing the project.
I mean, something like the Richardson, that was changed. That was actually reconsulted through the feedback from the consultant and their safety audit. So they looked at it and said, initially we thought the north side of the road was better. It had less accesses to property, so we thought that might be a better thing. But because of the crossings of the intersection, it was actually better to be on the south, so there was minimal intersection. So that was one that came up. And then we took that back out to the community, explained exactly why we changed it, and really didn't have, I don't think, any concerns about that change.
Right. So none of the routes have been changed solely out of car parking related outrage?
No. I said, you know, where we can work with people, I think that's the point of the affected party versus when we did the citywide. The affected party is to try to work with the property owners to try to, you know, minimize those impacts if we can. Like one of the suggestions was like a speed hump at a driveway entrance so you don't impact on parking when we were looking at making Musselburgh a quiet street through the shops. But really from the feedback from the businesses, the impact was still more on the parking that way, and I think there was concerns of being able to slow that area down enough when it would pick up again, being that's a higher order road.
But do we know, and this goes back to my question, like, do we know what that impact actually would be, or is it just solely based on what the businesses think it might be? Because we know that there is a discrepancy between those two things.
Yeah, I mean, I guess all centers act a bit differently, and Musselburgh, I know, it does have some issues with parking and stuff along there, that there aren't a lot of side streets to park on. So that one I felt was, you know, I thought was quite legitimate, where other ones you would say would it impact as much? I don't know.
I'll try and surmise your question, I think. So the question of potentially you're posing is the impact of 46 car park losses in Neville Street, is it material compared to other locations? Is that perhaps your question?
Or just in general?
Yeah. In general.
Are these decisions what are these decisions being based on, I guess? That was it. And that's answered that. My other question was just around, I mean, there's been a lot of community anxiety recently around the consultation process, in particular the limited window that we have, and I understand that is due to the limited window we have funding available to complete this project. Has there been an acceptance by either council staff or NZTA that the project that was approved for completion over that 3-year period was in fact too ambitious?
Possibly.
Certainly I wasn't here at the start when the project was conceived, but it is an ambitious program to get all the works done on time, and particularly when you're dealing with people and private property. It can, the people side of it can make things more difficult to deal with, and does make it long, at times extend the timelines for these types of projects.
I guess the other thing is when we did get the funding, you know, you're almost already a little behind when you find out you've got the funding. And we did review the network and have a bit of a look at it when we started on the first package. And so that took, I guess, a bit of extra time, but we felt we had a more robust network as a result of that.
I was just going to comment on the 2 weeks, that normally what we find is that we get quite a lot of submissions in the first few days, and then we don't really get very much, so we feel quite comfortable with the 2 weeks as a reasonable amount of time for people who are affected to get themselves together to make a submission.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Vanderbilt.
The loss of motorised connectivity in Kirkcaldy Street, for instance, have you got a value on what that actually is worth in terms of what we lose in connectivity?
I don't see what we're losing in connectivity.
Well, my understanding is that there are going to be encroachments onto Cotty Street so that it's becoming a quiet street so that you can't use it as a through route anymore.
No, you can still use... No, Cottery is not a quiet street. That's actually a separated by...
Kirkcaldy?
Oh, Kirkcaldy. Sorry.
At 10:18?
Yes. So, as far as affecting traffic volumes on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's the anticipated reduction in traffic volumes, given that it's a link road?
I mean, ideally, for a quiet street, you like to have your volumes around the 900 vehicles per day and your speeds around the 30K.
And what are the volumes now?
I don't have those offhand with me.
Has someone looked to see what the reduction is going to be?
Yes, I said I don't have those numbers with me right now, but it is a bit higher than that, and so part of that is to, by the type of treatments we do, is to divert traffic as well as slow it down.
Okay. In terms of actual value, what is your understanding of the value, for instance, of a central business district car park? I mean, how many dollars value do you recognise it as having?
No, sorry.
Okay, what about a suburban car park then? How many dollars value do you think that has?
I expect there's research in this area, but we don't have any figures to hand on values of car parks.
Right. I'm rather concerned that it would seem that you're wanting to lose 119 of something that you don't actually know the value of. From my experience as someone who used to own a car park in the CBD, about $20,000 for a car park, and I suggest perhaps half that for a suburban one. Why is it that, given that I made such a fuss the last time that we had a large report on cycleways, that there was no quantification of the number of car parks in the whole report? Why is it that again in this 22-page report you haven't quantified the number of car parks lost? We made a big fuss about it last time. Why is it that again this information, which was made very clear, was very important to me as a councillor and a lot of other people, why is it that information wasn't in this report?
So actually, I had to pull the report together while Lisa was at the conference, and I didn't have the detail of the parking to hand, which is why Lisa's provided that today. So that's the reason why the parking information wasn't actually included in the report itself.
With respect, the reason the information was provided today is because Councillor Calvert actually asked the very specific question, had to ask it 3 times, I think, to get the answer. But, okay, I accept that that's the situation there. Given that there is a significant value in losing 119 car parks, how can you do a cost-benefit analysis without taking that kind of value into account? How can you actually say we should go ahead with package 2 or package 3 because the SP11 cost-benefit analysis says that it has this value? How can you actually say that we're going to get value for doing this when we're going to lose 119 of something that you don't have any idea what it costs you?
So the SP11 methodology that has to be used to calculate the cost and benefit for cycle facilities, it doesn't include any estimate of the cost of losing parking spaces as part of development of your cycle network. So
exactly,
that's the methodology we have to use. It has some flaws.
Well, can I suggest, having just looked through the SP11 methodology, that not only does it not look at the loss of value of car parks, it also specifically doesn't look at any loss of value for motorised transport.
But sorry, just to make clear, that's the methodology that we have to use. The NZTA mandates the use of that methodology. So you can spend a lot of money developing alternative methodologies, but generally we don't have the resources to be able to do that. So we have to stick with the SP11 methodology. And even if we did develop our own methodology, for example, Christchurch City Council are developing their own cycle model, there's no guarantees that the NZTA will accept that as a valid benefit cost calculation in the end. So
I understand
there
now.
are some problems with the methodology.
Yeah, I understand now that the methodology is designed basically only to look at the benefits for cyclists. But it concerns me that in a report like this that we have to vote on, that we are not here simply to represent spokes or cyclists. We're here to represent all road users. And yet all of this cost benefit, all of this proposal for packages 2 and 3 is based on a cost benefit analysis that actually doesn't include a lot of things that we need to know. And I'm wondering why it is that none of that loss information is actually here. I mean, over and above what NZTA need, surely when you present a report to us, shouldn't we know how much we're losing in terms of value of car parks, how much we're losing in terms of loss to motorised vehicle connectivity?
Point of order, could I ask for my clarification? This may not be a point of order, but can I ask so I can understand what Councillor Van der Vos you're asking? What we lose as a city, as a council, in financial terms of a car park is lost? I just don't understand. So I'd like to
Could we have a further clarification too?
Sorry, the Mayor's asked me a question. I'm very happy to reply to him.
I'm happy to have that debate, and I will ask your question next. So,
yeah, as an ex-car park owner, and not in the suburban car park, but in the centre of town, those car parks have very clear value, and it's certainly in the order of tens of thousands of dollars.
Okay. Councillor Thompson would like to... But I think the Mayor's issue there is that the way of valuing these will be different in each case. Certainly a property owner may value a car park outside their house differently than the rest of the city would value that.
Oh,
I think
certainly.
that, yeah.
And suburban will be different from CBD.
Yeah.
That's the question that I asked, but none of this has been looked at.
So, did you want to...
Well,
I'm going to be flexible as long as no one does point of order on process here, but I think...
No, it's not a point of order. Your whatever, Excellency. But it's a question of staff, and it relates to the questioning. I may be mistaken, but I've taken it that you have responded to the motion passed by council which instructed you to do certain things. And I wonder, that motion, is it in fact correct that you have acted on the motion as passed by council and as detailed on pages 10.2 and 10.3? And is there anywhere in either of those sets of motions that has asked you to provide an economic analysis of the value of the car parks lost? And would that be any explanation as to why you haven't provided it?
Are you taking that as a question or not? Okay, sorry, I've been very relaxed here. Councillor Van der Vos, have you finished your questioning?
For now, thank you.
Okay, good. Next on my list is Councillor Bazette.
Oh, this is an easy one, and it might be for Mr. Avery. It's going back to the process again. When we've been dealing with issues like this, where we've had public consultation, and invariably there are a number of people who don't consult, and they come to you after the act, and there's been, in my view, there's been quite a bit of that, and the perception is that we are rolling out the cycleways over an extended period of time, and there are a lot of people unhappy about it. I don't think that is the case myself, because there has been consultation, and this is a question, by the way, Your Worship, in case you're going to ask that question.
Clarify, I'm not chairing this meeting.
So there is a perception that there is a lot of people that are unhappy about it. So my question is about the process, and so with regards to for example, in the attachment 1, there was a tender process for the, there was some of the road users are not adjusting well to the layout changes in Portobello Road. Now, what does that mean? Because I'd like to know how we are addressing that, because we're bound to have a similar sort of situation with some of the other changes that we're making. So what does that mean? Road users are not adjusting well to the layout changes in Portobello Road, and if that is the case, what are we doing about it?
Okay, so I haven't got which page for you that statement.
That's on page 10.8, right at the bottom.
Sorry, thank you. I was looking at a map, apologies.
So it's probably a question for Mr. Avery.
Or Jean.
Okay, Jean.
Yeah.
All right, well, whoever.
Right. So yes, we have had some feedback from users that visually they're not adjusting well to the changes, because there has been quite a big change in terms of how that infrastructure looks, going from a 4-lane type highway down to a 2-lane, and how the left hand side is now part of the service lane and cycle lane. So the users aren't adjusting as well as perhaps we would have liked. In the interim, there has been a delay in getting some of the road markings and signage up, so that is now getting installed. We've also put other measures of putting in what some people refer to as the nerf gun type delineation markers down the middle of the lane. I'm not sure the correct technical name. Lane bollards. That's the orange vertical delineation bits in the middle of the road. So they've been installed. That was not a planned measure, but because of the feedback we have been intervening and putting those in there. So there is, I understand, some more minor signage works and markings to be applied in the next week or so to sort of finish that off.
So these extras, if you like, to assist the motorists who are not adjusting well, are being taken in consultation with them after the event. So there is an opportunity for people to change the layout if they're not happy, because it's a given that not everybody is involved in consultation, and so that's one example. But there may be some, and hopefully in what we're approving today in attachment 2, there won't be the confusion that you've had in Portobello Road. I'm hoping that's the case. But I'd like to think that there is that opportunity for people to have an influence on changes, providing it's not dramatically saying, hey, we're not going to, we just want the whole thing back the way it was.
Certainly, if we find that through any construction that, and the design, once that's in place, that we're finding that the behaviour of the users, the traffic is not as we expected, it's not a complete science as to how this will work at the end of it, we would be intervening and putting other measures.
Can I ask that question another way? Is there some learnings you've taken from package 1, which would mean that in package 2 and 3 you may have requirements for signage to happen at the time of the building rather than after implementation?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Thompson, have you already done your question? So have you down there?
Signal that I have a
Motion.
motion.
Thank you. Councillor Calvert, then I'm expecting Councillor Vanderbilt.
Just a question about when we've done something. I think, and I might be talking about an emperor who has got clothes on for all I know, but as far as I can see, it's a complete bugger's muddle, that area along where 2/3 of the road is now taken up, Portobello Road. I'm talking about that piece along the side of the cliff. 2/3 of the road is now walking and cycling, and the trucks that are delivering things backwards and forwards there are using this, what feels when you drive along it like a tiny little strip. I mean, the whole thing looks like a bugger's muddle. Is there any ability, if we do one of those again, because this isn't just a perception, I mean, it's real to everyone who uses it, and you can't even turn round Portobello Road and go out in the peninsula anymore. Well, not legally. If we have something that people, call it perception, call it whatever you want, are really dissatisfied with, is there any chance that it can be rearranged later? I mean, in that case, since you've taken 2/3 of the road away, you could put one lane back, for example, if you wanted to. Is there any ability to adjust afterwards, apart from just to plant some more trees and hope the perception changes?
So we were talking about your back
Yes, there's definitely ability to change if things are not working well. That's what we're here for in the public service side of things, is to make sure that those customers have the right assets and infrastructure at the end of it.
Councillor Peet.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just referring to the pictures on 1014 and just the related one 10.6 to give the big picture. Can someone explain the flows around the oval to me? So I've got
10.
So the amended and versus the
So
approved.
the amended is the dash line?
The dash line, okay.
Is the, no, sorry, that was the original and the amended is the other?
Yeah, so how does that work? What happens when you get down, are you coming down that Henderson's Bay Road is at that point? The red line.
Okay,
on
yeah,
the right.
apologies,
Where does that go then?
Yeah, okay.
Underneath.
No, this part's, I say it's a little confusing. This is actually part of package 4 that was still on the map as far as some of the variations that we're doing through the pack and save. So it was a combination of maps to better understand what was happening in that area. But the original was to go around the back side of the oval. At one point, it had been looked at as options, and then that one, I guess, was the one that had been originally approved. The black coming around the top here, it does hook in here, but actually it's further up. There's actually a crossing at Gordon. It's a Gordon Street.
Connect with the Crawford Street.
Yeah, Gordon Street. So it connects with Crawford. So what you'd be doing is coming around the front of the monument. We couldn't cut through the monument, so that's part of why that's the way it is. There's a signal, so they can either go Crawford Street and go in the one-way pair if they're a more confident cyclist, or there's a separated facility on the south side of Gordon Street that goes up to Vogel Street. The proposal for the other connection from Hillside Road, which will be coming back to you next month on, because the option through Pack and Save was not a go, we really want to stay away from Cargill's Corner, is to go along the back side of the warehouse and then along Andy Bay Road, and then kind of, I guess, satisfy part of that section along there of that desire line. So there is, I guess, another option from this other side of town to still get up to this area. Because otherwise, we're really losing that link.
So I still don't get what's connecting across State Highway 1 there.
Okay. That's just a signalized, it's just a signalized intersection there.
Right.
It's a separated facility, and then there's a bit of shared path. And then when we get on the other side, I think there's actually cycle lane markings through the intersection, but if the SBF is to go through, they'll eliminate the cycle lanes that were there before.
So that's my understanding. That is the intention of the route. It's just not shown as a separate facility.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I'm about to go to Councillor Thompson. Yes, Councillor Vandervis.
Why is it, you think, that we're getting these kind of headlines in the Star and in the front page of the ODT saying the DCC cycle plan is crazy and the cycle plan is utter lunacy? Why do you think we're getting that kind of reaction?
Sorry, for some of us who don't get the Star, is that on the package 4 or package 1, 2 and 3, which is about this report?
This is about public perception of cycleways, which I believe we're discussing in packages.
Sorry, so this is about package 1, 2 and 3, and I'm just wondering if those headlines or those stories are about package 1, 2 and 3 or 4. I haven't seen them, I'm sorry, I don't know.
Well, they're about the cycleway plan, both of them are the cycleway plan.
I'm not sure you can have points of order while you're having questions, but the councillor's misrepresenting my friend Mr Lammers. That comment about lunacy referred to the change to Victoria Road because he wants it to go through the dunes. He's very supportive of cycle lanes, as we all know if we were at the meeting. So it's just specious to make a comment.
It's package 4, it's just, which isn't part of this. It leads on to it, but this is confirming packages 1, 2 and 3 as amended.
It's been moved to package 4, the particular part that Councillor Benson Pope referred to, but it is in this item as well. And there are some remarkable statements made about it on page 1020, bottom paragraph. And I would like to ask, first of all, who authored attachment 6, 10/20? There seems to be no signature at the end of it.
Is that a consultant or staff?
I mean, who wrote things like problems with personal security due to lack of passive surveillance, issues of sand encroaching on a slippery cycling surface? I mean, is this staff comment?
Yes, it is.
Right. Do we know which staff? Is it the same staff?
Point of order.
Report?
I think I'd like you to rule on the appropriateness of trying to personalise this to identify particular staff. It's inappropriate.
Lee, this is about options packages 1, 2 and 3 at the moment, the motions. Package 4 is in here to report that it's going to come back to us in ISCOM. I don't know the purpose and understand the purpose of your questioning, and I do take... I hear what the Mayor's saying.
I'll leave my comment to when we get to talk about the motion.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't understand where that's getting us. Thank you. I've got a motion, I think, on an amended motion from Councillor Thompson. He's indicated he's got one. I think you've got
Oh, sorry, I did have one other question.
Sorry, as long as it's about...
Yeah, it is. It relates to the SP11. In the consultant's report that Evan has very kindly forwarded, he says that I'm trying to understand cost benefits because I really struggle with it. It says here that benefits included in SP11, and this is the basis that you decide whether you're not going to do these things or not. Benefits included in SP11 are health and environmental benefits, walking, cycling, safety benefits, and travel time saving benefits for walkers and cyclists. Only for walkers and cyclists. No benefits to non-active modes are considered in SP11. So that means, or does that mean that in fact all of these benefits only apply to walkers and cyclists, that you don't consider any downsides to non-active modes, and that all the reports or all the cost benefit for packages 1, 2 and 3 are actually based on this SP11 criteria for cost benefit? Is that the case?
That's my understanding, but I'd have to double check with the consultants who do the work for us.
Okay, and it goes on to say only benefits to cyclists or generated by cyclists have been considered in this analysis.
Yeah, that's normal.
Okay, that's normal. All right, that's amazing. But
thank you.
So that's just to point out that we don't make up that methodology. That's the NZTA's methodology that we have to use.
Thank you. I've just got one question myself, sorry, and before I go to Councillor Thompson. Given the nervousness in the situation where we may not have enough funding to implement the whole one as raised by Councillor Calvert, is it, I mean, just looking at what we're getting out of packages 1, 2 and 3, and perhaps that does at least integrate some of South Dunedin in your opinions, or are there areas that we should be focusing on finishing to give better integration? Or will you look at that as you go through the process in the tendering prices? Because I don't want to have a whole lot of wee bits that aren't connected at the end of this.
Yes, as certainly as the tender prices come in and we are clearer on what the likely forecast is, there is many options that we can consider, and one has been rationalisation, potentially delaying less critical routes that have less connectivity, and/or that's essentially about it, really.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Thompson?
Thank you. I've provided a form of words which will no doubt wend its way to the screen, so...
Magic. Your timing as a magician isn't so good.
Can I, by way of a preliminary comment, make the point that we are not here debating whether or not we should have the South Dunedin cycle network. And it would be helpful, I think, in any ensuing debate to confine our debate to what is actually on the agenda and not what some people might like to be on the agenda. We have previously determined as a council that we are going ahead with this. And I just would draw attention in particular to point 4 of that motion, that the committee reaffirms its commitment to delivering the safest possible network for all road users within budget constraints, noting that ideally this would involve segregated facilities on direct routes, and also noting that delivery of that outcome would require budget over and above what is currently available. And it went on to clarify a suggestion that might be looked at for additional budget. But the point is, we have made this decision to go ahead. There are some people who don't agree with it, and that's the nature of democracy. But we've made the decision. What we're actually here talking about today is the implementation of that decision. And there are aspects of that which I am slightly uncomfortable about. I think it puts council in a difficult situation when changes get made from what is approved, and effectively you've already gone out for tender on those changes when you subsequently bring it to council. I accept that that's happened, but my suggested change up there is to potentially allow the remediation of what I see as being one of the significant, or that probably the most significant concern in packages 1 through 3 to me. I think that we should price that alternative route. We should at least be able to know what it is going to cost, because I don't think that the replacement route is the most sensible in terms of getting people as directly as we can, and we know that to the extent that you don't take them as directly as possible, they are less likely to use it. And the worst possible outcome we could have for all of this is to build a network that is not what people want and then doesn't get used. And I think in that context, we are talking about something that should have been built into city infrastructure decades ago, and would be progressively changed over time to suit purposes. We're starting so far behind the 8 ball, but that means it makes it almost more important that we don't think of this as a current year expenditure or a next year expenditure, but we see this as a 20 or 30 or 40 year expenditure. And it's in the context of that the last point is up there. It really concerns me that we may make some less than appropriate decisions because we're being forced into a time frame, because this is about money that is attached to a particular year. But for me, this is about a project that is attached to decades into the future. And so we should be doing everything we can to ensure that where we have perhaps still got to do some work on evaluating alternatives, that we have the time to do that. We don't get pushed into something that may be second best and result in meeting nobody's needs. So for me, okay, I'm prepared to retrospectively approve those changes. Most of them made sense. The one that doesn't, to me, I've drawn attention to. I know that there are 1 or 2 other people who have a similar view on that one, so I'm expressing that on their behalf as well.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Normally I would have got you to speak after I had a seconder, but I didn't. So thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Do you want to have a speak now? No. Thank you. Now, Councillor Hawkins and Councillor Pope, then Councillor Vandervis.
Oh, I wasn't wishing to speak yet.
Okay, so Benson Pope. Yeah, sorry. Vandervis. Councillor Vandervis.
Councillor Thompson has claimed that we are going ahead with this. He doesn't specify what this is. The this that we decided to go ahead with some time ago is quite different to what we're looking at now. And there's a very good reason why we're having a debate now, and that is that we get to decide today whether we go ahead with what is in front of us. And Councillor says that we are going ahead with this. He is basically, in a quite Stalinist way, I would have thought, trying to basically tell us that we've got nothing to do here but all say yes in accordance, move right along, nothing to be discussed, this is a done deal. He's also said, we have made this decision. There are a heap of decisions in here, a lot of them new, and there's a whole lot of new information in here as well, which we never had in the past. Councillor Thompson has also said we should see this as a 20, 30 or 40-year expenditure. I heard that endlessly in 2006, 2007 regarding the stadium. For decades into the future, if we look decades into the future, we will not be pumping physical bicycles in any great number. They will all be electric. They will not be doing 15 kilometres an hour. They will all be doing 30 to 50 kilometres an hour. At a minimum, they might be doing more. We are in the process, I understand, of spending millions of dollars, losing 119 car parks, which if you want to put 10 grand a car park on it, I don't know, the figure just plucked out of the air, is over $1 million worth of car parks that we're losing. We're losing all of that value. We're losing connectivity for motorised transportation, which is more than 95% of all the goods and people that get moved around the city. We are losing all of this for a decision of this that we're going ahead with, which within a few years is likely to be made redundant by electric bicycles anyway. The explanation for what's going on here, I believe, can be found when you look at SP11 and the statement in SP11, this is the reason for doing it, the cost benefit, that only benefits to cyclists or generated by cyclists have been considered in this analysis. Now, I accept that this is what staff have done, and they've probably done a very good job of it. But I don't believe it's our job to tick off an SP11 mandated by the NZTA, which only looks at the benefits to cyclists or generated by cyclists to be considered. I believe that as city councillors, we have to look at a much wider view. We have to look at the other users of the transportation system. In fact, we have to load what we look at in the knowledge that 95% of all goods and people moved around the city will always be motorised. That is to say, not any of this. For these reasons, I believe that although staff may have done the cost benefit as per SP11, that cost benefit only relates to cycling. It doesn't take anything else into account. It doesn't take the loss of car parks into account. It doesn't take the loss of connectivity into account. It doesn't take the frustration value that so many people are going to have when they realise they can't park any longer where they used to. In fact, not only can they not park any longer where they used to, the claims that there are other places that they can park are claims that I've been hearing here since 2004. And yet since 2004, every time that there's been a discussion on parking, I've seen erosion of car parks, I've seen car parks taken away. I've seen people that used to be able to park in the centre of town in the CBD now parking all up around Ulverston and in the Greenbelt and now being chased away from there as well. I see people that used to be able to park under the bridges that cross the one-way street system, the all-day parkers, the people who come and work in offices in the city, now no longer able to get a park and having to pay expensively for one. And I'm guilty of having been a landlord recently who owned a car park, made a damn fortune out of it because people are so desperate to actually find somewhere to park their cars. Because for most people, the cycling option and the bus option are simply not realistic options for them to get into the city and do their work. I believe that this whole cycling plan is, as is claimed in the ODT headline, utter lunacy. I believe that this whole cycling plan, as it's now developing, especially as it's going on, is crazy. And the reason it's crazy is because it's being built on a cost benefit that is only looking at benefits to cyclists and doesn't look at the greater picture. I'm also really concerned that one of the major drivers for it apparently is safety. Now, the idea in the cost-benefit analysis that I've just been reading about here under SP11 is that they're going to get more cyclists to actually cycle. But if you look at a safety point of view, if you look at a holistic view of the whole city, the more people you have on bicycles, the more people you're going to have maimed and killed because of the vulnerability of cycling. I mean, this is a fact. None of this enters into any of these analyses here. We've got a situation where we're looking at massive cost, massive loss of car parks, probably more people being killed on our roads because more people are going to be cycling, more people are going to be convinced that it's somehow safe with a separated cycleway, which is a contradiction in terms because you can't separate them in sections anyway. The people that voted for me don't want me to vote for any of this. I believe that those people are a majority in the city, and that by going ahead with this, we don't represent them well. I have accepted and voted for the cycleway that goes out to the peninsula. I can see that there are benefits just in widening the road there. I have accepted some of the package 1 obvious places where you could put a cycleway, Victoria Road, places like that. Not too much cost, obvious opportunities there, no problem. But where we're heading now with this, where this is now taking us, we've had the low-hanging fruit. We've done the easy stuff. We've done the stuff where there is an obvious benefit. Now we're getting into SP11 fundamentalism. We're getting into a situation where this is for cyclists, by cyclists, and the rest of the city is going to suffer. I think now's the time we want to vote against going any further. Packages 2 and 3 would be good ones to vote against.
Councillor Colbert.
We seem to have 3 different things going on here that aren't all perhaps being taken into total account. We've got the analysis that was required and the costs and benefits for transit to get some money, which was not only important but vital to get the whole thing off the ground. And I think the staff are doing what looks like is a fabulous job of doing that. On top of that, and I'd also like to thank the staff, they have gone some way towards attempting to take into account other issues relating to road users. But we don't officially have any natural cost-benefit relationship to other road users than the cycle people. And the fact that we've done an analysis for transit doesn't mean that, or whoever, doesn't mean that we can't do one. Our obligations here around this table are different from our obligations to transit to get some money and to keep faith with them. We have in our papers here something that says we're looking at the safety of all road users, but we're not officially taking into account all road users in any way. So we're not doing costs and benefits of parking or other issues. We're not doing costs and benefits in a safety sense of other road users, although we think we are, officially at all. And I'd like to see us doing those 3 different analyses when we're doing it. And I don't think one precludes the other. I think the one we've done so far and the big efforts the staff have made to try and do the second one that we're pretending we don't have to do is admirable, but I don't think we've done it. I think for the next bit, we need to do all those 3 because our obligations around this table are different from the obligations of how we got a contribution to this money in the first place. So I think there's those 3 different bits, and I'd like to see, as we go on with the next bit, that we acknowledge that we're not just doing this for cyclists. We're doing this for trucks that might hit cyclists. We're doing this for trucks who don't want to hit cyclists. We're doing it for all road users, whether the cars are stopping, whether they're starting, whether they're cars or whether they're trucks. It has to work for everyone, or it will, in the end, work for no one. So I think on top of what we do for transit, we also need to be doing safety things for everyone and costs and benefits for all road users. For that reason, although I have sympathy with where we've got to and with that resolution up there, I won't be voting for it, neither will I be voting against it, because as I say, I can have sympathy with where we've got to, and I'm hoping that with the next bit, we can acknowledge those 3 different bits that we need to be doing. I will be abstaining from this.
Thank you. Councillor Hall?
The biggest concern I can see is we're losing 119 car parks. Where are they going to park? Now, 10 years ago, behind the railway station, most of those streets you could park anywhere during the day. Now it's virtually full of people that are working in the city. You go down to those businesses, you've got nowhere to park, you got a double park. Those 119 spaces, biggest majority are in Vogel Street, in that area. Where are those people going to park?
Sorry, I think the biggest number, just for clarification, we're in Neville Street.
Neville Street, there's a fair amount in Vogel Street too.
Vogel Street.
Yeah, but even in Neville Street, when you drive around that area, which is going to be developed with Carisbrook going into industrial area, we're just going to run out of car parking. You can't park anywhere in the north end of Dunedin because everything's full. Most of South Dunedin is full. Where are people going to park? That should be taken into account as well when they're doing it.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Councillor Bezet?
Yeah, I'm going to support this recommendation. I agree with a lot of what Councillor Thompson said, and I take on board the points that Councillor Vandervis and Councillor Hall have made about car parks. It's a difficult issue. But one of the reasons why, and we made the decision, as Councillor Thompson said some time ago, to support this, the cycle network. And I was really pleased when we decided initially to support the southern route, because it's a feeder to so many schools in the area. And with me, it's a safety issue. Now, we've got this paper here, the Operational Road Safety Action Plan, and it's all to do with our Integrated Transportation Plan. But Dunedin currently has the highest level of overall safety risk of all New Zealand cities. And we're maiming or killing, and fortunately mostly it's maiming, that's the right way to put it, about 80 or 90 people a year. And it is a huge safety issue, and cyclists are just part of the package. So I don't think we should stop at this stage. I agree with the idea of looking at time to evaluate package 4, given some of the concerns that the people in Victoria Road expressed the other day about the proposed changes in the Esplanade area or Victoria Road area. So we should be taking it slowly and making sure that we get it right. But getting back to the question I asked before, my main concern, or a concern that I do have, is if we don't get it right, then we can revisit it. We have done that already with the example that was used with Portobello Road. And I'll be the first one to accept that the council don't always get it right. But if we don't, then we can review it. But let's keep on with the program, because the idea is good, the concept is sound, and I think we should get on with it.
Thank you, Councillor Bezet. Councillor Staines?
I'll be voting in favour of the resolutions. I think we have to remind ourselves of a few things. Firstly, the roads and the parks that go along the sides of them are part of public property. Car parking is not the right of the car owners. It is something that we as a city can determine. So while the loss of 119 car parks can be used as a strong hammer to say we shouldn't be doing this, the reality of life is the majority of those car parks contribute no money to the city. They are free car parks. Very few of them occur where we're charging, and a $10,000 car park I would think it's probably more likely to cost us that to keep the car park sealed and in good condition. But anyway, I think the thing we have to remember here is that all of this roading infrastructure was based around cars. It didn't take into account active forms of transport at all, really. And perhaps that was because when they were first built, the number of cars to a household was probably significantly less than one, where now it's typically one for everybody who lives in the household. So what's happened is those roads have become unsafe for cyclists, they've become less safe for pedestrians, and if we can't do something about that, then we'll continue to see the kind of maiming and deaths that we have seen in this city. So the issue for us is not that we sit on our hands and do nothing. We do have to do something. But the issue is we're trying to retrofit safe cycling into a city which has been designed primarily for cars. And so that's going to mean compromise. It's going to mean compromise on behalf of the cyclists, and it's going to mean compromise on behalf of the motorists. But if the end result is motorists don't kill cyclists and then carry that on their conscience all their lives, and cyclists can be out there and safer, then I think we've achieved the right end. In terms of electric bikes, sure, I think we're going to see more electric bikes. And the potential is that they will be faster. But how many motorcyclists do we see killed in this country every year? Lots and lots. The reason they're killed is not because their vehicles don't go as fast as cars, but because they're totally unprotected. So if they happen to hit a car or any other object, the chance of death is high. So even if there is more electric bikes, my belief is we're still going to need to provide those vehicles where people are not protected an opportunity to travel on a path that is less likely to come into contact with a large moving object like a truck. So I support these. I accept that there's going to be some compromises for motorists in this, but I think at the end of the day, the active cycle network is important for a city that's trying to be one of the best small cities in the world.
Any other speakers? Yeah.
Yeah, I support these motions. It seems to me that the development of the cycleways around the city was to enhance both the amenity of the city, provide options for road users, and lift our safety record beyond what it has been, which is pretty bad. Any benefits to cyclists then in that regard are also benefits to other road users. So it is spurious to split up and say there's no benefits to anyone else because we're worried about the safety of cyclists. As Councillor Stain said, if you hit a cyclist when you're driving and you do any great damage, I think you'd feel that you had lost something yourself. So we're benefiting all groups on the roads. I'd have to say that this process of developing cycleways is relatively new to the Dunedin City Council. So we're going to make mistakes, and it's been a huge learning curve for councillors, for staff, and for the community. And we've redone some things along the way, and I think overall staff have done pretty well, very well in fact, and the councillors have done pretty well in learning how we need to engage with our community and working out what the various and varied stakeholders want. So I think we've done pretty well so far. We need to keep going with this, as has been pointed out, to enhance the amenity and the choice that we have for our community.
Councillor Lord.
Yeah, look, I feel I have to explain why I'm going to support this, and it's very, when I look at 109 car parks, or 116, or whatever the figure was, and when I think of the geographical area that these plans cover, from right out at Musselburgh, right down around through to St Clair, right down through to the Oval, it's a fairly big geographical area. I sit there at home and I can see we can have 6 or 8 or 10 cars just parked in our drive, and it's not because we own 6 or 8 or 10 cars, but because we have visitors. And you know, look, in the greater scheme of things, in that area, I believe 109 car parks is actually reasonably insignificant. I've never killed anyone on the road, and I don't ever want to. And I look at, on the law of averages, you get 2 cars crash, you both get hurt. If you're not going too fast, sometimes no one dies. But if I run over a cyclist, whether they were stupid or whether they should have looked better or whether I should look better, irrelevant. They always come off second best, and I just don't want to be in that position. And I think what Councillor Staines has said, you know, we are playing catch up, but the facts are that there is so many more cars on the roads now that there weren't many years ago. And when it was, perhaps when I was young, you know, biking to school was considered a safe option. Most people could do it. Nowadays, for a variety of reasons, it's not so safe, and it's because mainly there's way more cars on the road. But in the greater scheme of things, I think 109 car parks is not so significant that I don't think these alternatives can be found. And maybe we need to start looking at how we do that smarter. But I'm not going to throw the cycleways out just on that option.
Okay, Councillor Hopkins, do you want to write in play?
A couple of points. The Councillor Lord has made one of them for me. We're talking about approximately 400 metres less car parking in tens of thousands of metres. Now, I haven't worked out exactly, but you've got both sides of the roads and it's going to be in that order. So to suggest that this is somehow undermining the economic fabric of our society as we know it just strikes me as being the same kind of hyperbole that persists in saying that we are spending millions of dollars on this when we're spending 1.5 million.
You want pay taxes?
As a former clinical psychologist, I do have a good understanding of what drives some of the hyperbole and but we won't go there. But the point that I did want to make as a follow-up is that this, for me, this whole cycleways has actually not been about the lycra-clad, you know, pretty boys. It's actually for me it's been about providing facilities that it's safe for kids to get back on bikes and on roads. Now, to the extent that there are adults who don't cycle and who might wish to, and it makes them feel safer, then clearly that's a significant plus. The experienced cyclists are probably going to go where they want to go when they want to do it anyway, and I don't know whether this will make a hell of a lot of difference. But it's for all of those, it's for the younger part of our population that I think we really need to make this difference. And for me, this is the way we need to go. So I just think we need to get on with it.
Thank you. I'm no one put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against?
No. Reported, please.
Okay, and it's one abstention. Just while we're getting ready for the division, can I just note that we all need to stay behind, we'll be going into non-public after this meeting. Sorry.
Aye.
Councillor Hall. But you're only 12 degrees now. I swear if it's 30 degrees outside, it's 7 today.
Councillor Payne. Councillor Staines.
Enjoy, soldiers of Jah Army. You are towards your toggle.
Dear Lord.
Lordy. You're not on my list.
I didn't realise you were tired. Apologies.
Councillor Lord.
Carried. Thank you very much. Now, the next item is thank you very much, staff, and I do appreciate you coming. I know it's been hard. Notification of agenda items for consideration by the chair, taking on board what Councillor Vince Cope has already said. If there are none, I'll bring the meeting to an end. I'm sorry about this, but at short notice we've got a matter which is now closed. We need to go into closed committee, closed council, for a briefing. Apologies. Do you want to do this in the Mayor's Lounge? Would it be easy to do it in the Mayor's Lounge?